Peggy's Cove's my jam, dude. I go, there's like that. You can eat there. I eat like lunch there. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. Let me know next time you're in town.
Yeah, I'm never coming back, dude.
I'm
eating a black bag the minute that I land. They're gonna be like, black bag. Trudeau's gonna have me personally brought to his office. He's gonna administer a booster shot, dude, like to me. If you want to stay, Adam, you just got to let me give you this booster shot.
You got to get your 4 boosters and eat your bugs.
He's gonna be dressed like Aladdin. With his, which honestly would be worth it to me.
Well, yeah, you really got to wonder which kind of blackface he's going to do that day. Like, is he? What is he feeling?
You're listening to the Art and War podcast with your hosts Mitch and Nathan. Mitch is a former airborne infantry squad leader who now spends most of his time coaching soccer. Nathan is a professional illustrator and an avid shooter with a couple of years of Canadian military experience. Together, they run the Seaburn art page. Enjoy the show.
Today we have Adam Holroyd, the founder and owner of Spiritus Systems. At least we're pretty sure. We're mostly sure. Your profile had an Ayn Rand quote on spiritussystems.com on it.
It did, yeah. We like to keep it a little ambiguous. No, it's I'm one of 3. I'm one of 3, yeah. So there's myself. There's Zane. If you look him up, Zane Vogel. It'll pop up, Spiritus Systems. And then Nicole Holroyd is also an owner, my wife. She's one of the owners too. So there's three owners of the company right now.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
And you all founded it together, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, if we go back, I think every company has kind of an origin story, right? But Spiritus was an idea of mine. Basically, I was contracting. I'd gotten out of the Army, and I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to do something, and contracting seemed like a good route. And so every contractor, everybody who sells services to the government, even if it's just themselves, you start some kind of S corporation or some kind of corporation, and you pass your finances through that corporation, just because it's the proper thing to do here in the U.S. So you'd start a corporation, and that's really where Spiritus started. But so like when, I say that because people will look up our corporate, records and be like, how come they always say it started in this time, but it shows records back in 2013. So that was what that was. And then it really didn't gain the life that it has today until Zane and Nicole started being a part of it, to be, completely honest. So it really like kind of evolved it into a brand. Zane and I were both in Afghanistan. So, he was still in the Army, and then I was over there contracting. We were able to link up a couple times, which was kind of cool. But we were talking about equipment a lot because he was wearing the same stuff. Our service times were, years apart. So I joined in 2005, got out around 2010. And then he joined in, I think maybe 2013, I want to say, so he started a lot later than I did. And so he was still in the Army, and I just couldn't believe that he was wearing like the same exact kit. It was just a different color. Like he was in multicam, I was in ACU, but it was the same exact stuff pretty much. And I was really kind of appalled by it, especially, dealing with the special operations side. On my contract, seeing what they had in comparison to what Zane had, really a disservice, to be honest. Just kind of the disparity in nylon equipment. And when you start seeing how big the budget is for other things in the U.S., you really start to question people's integrity when it comes to nylon. Right. So that's really how it was started. Is we were just like, we think we can do it better.
Yeah. Like, I mean, when anyone who's dealt with the military in any capacity, or the government in any capacity, you can always see there's kind of just a lack of innovation unless really, really forced to dig into some.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
So your post, I was just showing Nathan about even presently with your pouches trying to be like, hey, maybe we can step it up a little bit. And they're just seemingly uninterested for whatever reason.
Yeah, the acquisition system is, and I try to be sensitive because, the United States, 330 million people, I don't know what percentage actually pay taxes, but there's enough of us paying taxes that we have this massive revenue, this massive defense budget. The United States is an empire, a vast empire. It's funny because we feign such indignation towards other places that are trying to, spread their reach a little bit, but yet we are the empire. And I say that with a little bit of malice because I'm really a big fan of just admitting, like if you're having an abortion, just say you're having an abortion. If you're taking over half of the known globe, just say it.
Yeah.
I mean, just say what you're doing and just be on with it, and just go do what you're going to do. But we have this massive defense budget. It's created this massive, bureaucratic apparatus to support it. And every time one of these offices stands up, just make something up, like the ray gun adjunct office of whatever, PEO soldier or something like that. Once they're stood up, they'll never go away because you've created jobs and those people. And honestly, I don't blame them that much. It would take a lot of virtue to like stand up and say, we're irrelevant and we need to dissolve my own job and I will just go find a new job. It would be very you'd have to have a lot of courage and virtue. Most people just aren't going to do that. But once you stand up the office, it's there forever. Even if they're offering anything, they're just kind of hidden away. And there's this line of accounting. I guarantee there are people who work, especially after COVID. I guarantee there are people working in the government, even in the private sector, to be honest, but definitely in the government. They're back in an office somewhere and no one even knows that they're still on the payroll.
Just
and
hoping no one looks them up.
Yeah, they're just they just show up and they're just man, I'm still getting paid. My boss got let go, everybody, but they forgot about me.
Yeah.
And they're just working and they're not working though. They're just doing whatever, or maybe they are. Maybe they're still filing papers and stuff.
Yeah. That's how you end up getting $5,000 office chairs on the next
Exactly.
Yeah. Pencil pushers and jobs programs versus people pulling all the weight and kind of doing the impressive stuff.
Yeah, my mind jumps to Mitch because when they couldn't get rid of him and he was still in the army, his whole process of getting medboarded was basically 2 years.
Yeah.
But he's going to hear this and either laugh or yell
Cry.
at me. Just the things he was doing, just basically in the back room. He couldn't have his phone or anything like that, so he was nothing, just nothing.
Yeah, you're just I guess I'll just sit here.
Yeah, for years.
Yeah.
And, it's not for lack of trying to get out. I mean, a lot of people have that cushy job. They really want to keep it for everything it was worth. No, he tried to leave and they wouldn't let him. It's
the Army's got this weird thing where it basically, if they break you in some way, they will not let you out until they have fixed you to the best of their abilities. Which I say that there's an asterisk next to that, the best of their abilities. They're going to try to put you back together. And I think the system is definitely flawed. I've never been through a med board, but I know tons of guys I know guys med boarding now, and it is always a beast. You're lucky if you get out of there with your sanity because it's just the Army is checking all these boxes and you're just in this bureaucratic mess, but they also can't ask you to really do anything of importance. Because you're med boarding and heaven forbid you get hurt again or re-injure yourself or something. So they just kind of make you an untouchable and they just stick you away somewhere. And I think the unlucky ones get put kind of in a barracks with a bunch of other people who are hurt or sick or whatever. And then maybe you're lucky you get put onto some you're working at some battalion as an admin guy or something. At least you have some human interaction. Or a purpose, maybe a little bit of a purpose. But the Army definitely chews you up. It is not, and it's actually a segue into, I think there's this whole social dilemma going on in the Western world, and our military is it's gonna be behind the power curve because it's institutionalized and people are trying to protect it, right? But it's there now. It's gotten to the point where our military is fully exhibiting the symptoms of kind of a sick society, and I mean sick in the not sick sad world type. I mean ill. Our society is ill, and the military is definitely exhibiting signs of that as well now. It's kind of got a cold, and it's gonna keep getting worse, I think, until honestly until we get into a conflict where, we fire the people who shouldn't be in charge and we put the actual people, which happens in almost every conflict that we have. So it's pretty sad.
Go from the point of our little social experiment to actually needing something that can get the job done.
Yeah. For sure.
God, I'm lucky to have got out when I did, but
Sure.
the friends that I know that are still there, the horror stories, the people I joined with have been there. The guy downstairs now, he did basic with me back in 2008, but
You're still stuck with him.
Yeah, now him and Isaac from the Schizocast episodes, they both work together in an operational capacity, and the stories that they tell me that come straight from the horse's mouth, straight from command, are horrifying.
Yeah.
And that's a theme that I see brought up quite a bit, but hasn't been articulated quite as well as you did there, I think, is we do live in a sick society, and things are getting worse and worse, and it is symptomatic of what's coming. And I'm going to stop myself right there before
Sandwich board sign, Nathan.
Yes.
Do it, man. Go into that dark place.
10 minutes into the episode. I can't go full schizo yet. I probably will.
All right, I'll dig us out a little bit.
Yes,
So,
please.
back when you were founding Spiritus, Adam, was there any awareness of this kind of bureaucratic mess at the time? Like, was Spiritus, or what would later become Spiritus, was that an attempt to kind of fix those problems, or was that a role that you guys stepped into a little bit more down the line?
Well, so if we back up to when I was still in the Army,
Yeah.
I was already very frustrated because we were in really high altitude mountain terrain in Afghanistan, in a reconnaissance platoon, walking like ungodly amounts of distance, really heavy rucksacks, running into Fred Baker, doing all of these things.
Oh, I love Fred. He's been on.
Yeah, Fred's great, and Fred was great to work with in Afghanistan as well. And the disparity between like what Fred had, what he was wearing, like the quality of the equipment, the weight, all of those things compared to like what I had to deal with, was disheartening. But we're out doing this mission, like we're mixed in with a JSOC element who has all the stuff and we have none of the stuff, which I think taught me lessons too, in just the whole saying more with less. Right? Like we were still able to be very effective, but it would have been a lot more comfortable. So it kind of scarred me because the military, especially the regular Army, does not change quickly. And so you really have to be willing to bend the rules if you want to make it out alive. Like if you're like, hey, I just really want to wear whatever kind of boots I'm going to wear, or if you just got to kind of sneak it. You just got to learn like, hey, when the sergeant major comes out, everybody's going to put their best uniform on and look awesome. And then as soon as he leaves, everybody's going to put their stuff back on. And then we'll go do the real job, which is a part of this institutional sickness that the military seems to never be able to rid itself of in history, right? You got guys trying to ride horses against machine guns. Today, we still have sergeant majors who, it's really an officer corps problem too, but we think we really have romanticized like the 50s and that type of warfare in the 40s, World War II. We really think that that's going to happen again. You hear it with the Ukraine stuff right now. It's going to be this World War III scenario with open warfare and tank battles. And you see the tank battles happening in Ukraine. It's not tank battles. It's urban fighting. It's atrocious, disgusting, like force on force in the city streets with tanks. Like tanks are there for sure, but it's not that. So that's where I started like having kind of like a schism with the institution piece. And I got out because I was just like this, the outlook for an infantryman in that time frame was like deploy for a year every other year in perpetuity. There was no end in sight. We were in the middle of all these troop surges. America was like, let's just keep invading Middle Eastern countries. Syria was on the roadmap. I'm like, why are we doing this? So I got out. Contracting was looking more lucrative. I did not understand that I would run into so many people in the government who are so willing to just occupy a seat that they have no business occupying, right? And a lot of these program offices, how they're built in such a way that a person becomes the manager, like the program manager, and they have to have a project. And in order to get to that next tier, that next pay level, they have to like successfully implement a project. Right. And that's like, we're speaking very loose, right? But like basically how it works. So they sponsor some kind of project. And then again, their survival depends on it. So at all costs, they will make sure that program is successful. And what I saw is that they're ramming this stuff down the soldier's throat, and they will not quit, even though the soldier is saying like, hey, your thing doesn't work. We don't want it. We've never wanted it. They just go, well, we've spent too much money on it, so you're going to use it. Like the 163 radio. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that radio handset, but Harris 163, not doing well, has not been doing well for a few years. They're probably fixing it up now, but it's, guys were constantly like, hey, this isn't really what we need. And they're just like, it does not matter. You're going to get
we
it.
have to spend money.
Or not. Well, we've already spent the money, right?
Yeah.
My mind jumps back to, the fall of the Soviet Union and all the forced quotas and everything else. You know, all right, Comrade Stalin says that I will go to the prison. I will get the gulag if I don't implement X sort of policy. Yep. And I remember, learning about that in school and thinking, oh, that's ridiculous. Something like that would never happen here. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
And
the bureaucracy is astounding. Right. Yeah. It's just the weight of it. And that, that post, I did a ranty post. I've been trying to get away from that, but it pissed me off enough to do an Instagram post about it. It's just very frustrating, right? I don't want the government to select my product arbitrarily, which is what they do anyways. I want them to listen to actual soldiers, right? That's what I want them to do. That's all I want. I don't care if it's mine or if it's Cry Precision or Eagle or whoever, but it's like field the stuff, put a test group, let them actually decide things, instead of coming up with all this, like they do these things where they have like the program office will get like a scientist who's never actually worn equipment. And that scientist will tell you, hey, this rucksack frame is better based on all these metrics. And then you put it on and you're like, I don't know what to tell you. My back hurts. Yeah. And they'll be like, it's impossible. I did the math. And you're like, I don't know. I guess I'll wear this. You don't have a choice, like as an infantryman. And that's the problem with conventional versus special operations, is that we are not allowed to say no. Like everybody's a rape victim in the military, but like we don't even get the opportunity to say no. They're like, there's two groups of rape victims, and the special ops side gets to say no every once in a while, and we don't get to say no. So it's really the infantrymen that I'm looking out for. Like I go to these industry days and I try to pressure these program offices the best that I can, without trying to influence them in a way that would be seen as inappropriate, if that makes sense, right? Because that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to get the government to buy my stuff sole source or just come to Spiritus. I'm just trying to open the aperture a little bit of like, can we not buy 4 magazine pouches? Can we do our diligence just a little bit and see that there are magazine pouches out there that can fit, the 6.8 magazine that's coming out, 5.56 Stanag mags, 7.62, by 5.1 mags, and it can fit AK mags. So if if there's some weird situation where that's a thing, like Ukraine, you just have it. It's just like, you don't have to worry about the mag pouch anymore, which is something directly relatable to my service. I had all these weapon systems and they gave me a 5.56 pouch and a 7.62 by 5.1 pouch, and you could not cross pollinate magazines. So you were like unmollying mag pouches every mission, like every other mission. You're like, I'm taking the 110 out this time, so I guess I'll just undo all my pouches, which if you've ever done molly, it's fun maybe the first time. It's not fun the 300th time.
Yeah, it's exciting when a package arrives in the mail, but not when not when it's a daily chore.
Exactly. It's not. You're just like, man, I want to sleep right now or something. Instead, you're like weaving Molly pouches, and
Yeah, I kind of ironically, I'm doing that right now as we talk. I just
that's perfect.
keep
Oh, and those are
going.
malice clips too, man.
Yeah.
It's,
Oh yeah, that's way
yeah,
different.
more efficient.
Yeah,
more efficient.
Way more efficient.
The Art and War podcast brought to you by our newest sponsor, Otti Gear. Whether you're at the range or in the field, Otti Gear is a great option for staying warm this winter. With the highest warmth to weight ratio for synthetic material, the LV insulated jacket has been crushing it for me. And trust me, I am a in the cold, so I value a good jacket. I moved to the desert for a reason, but the desert nights still pretty cold. So grabbing myself a LV insulated jacket has been a lifesaver.
I love my Audi packable cubes and my Audi bag. I can't break it no matter what I do, and I'm an idiot. I throw 50 pounds of sharp and like loose rounds, staples, an SBR into my Audi bag, and I have not been able to break it no matter how much abuse I've put it through. I don't even think I've popped a stitch, and I've been running that thing for like 2 years into the ground. I love that bag, and if you abuse your gear like me, you probably will too. Big thanks to Audi Gear for helping support the podcast.
You can find Otti Gear either at ottegear.com, that's Oscar Tango Tango Echo Gear.com, in the link of this episode's description, or via the Instagram page at Otti Gear. How's it going, lads and ladies? B.R and Nathan here to take a quick break to tell you about our Patreon. Not only do we want to continue improving the quality of what we can do here on Art and War, but we want to push what we do all over at Seaburn Art, from the guides to pursuing video content and keeping us warm during another winter of illness and death, and the Patreon helps us get after it.
But what's in it for you? Our Patreon subscribers enjoy 5 different tiers of exclusive perks, ranging from all the content we'd post on a pre-Zuckerberg Instagram, downloadable high-resolution guides, targets such as Redcoat Skinwalkers, John Harvey Kellogg, seasonal targets, and more. Behind-the-scenes info like my personal art, introducing all new exclusive mini-podcast episodes, and at our highest tier, get monthly art commissions created by yours truly.
You can find our Patreon via the link in this episode's description at patreon.com/SeaburnArt, or in the Seaburn Art page's bio on Instagram. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the show. So that's something I've always been a little bit curious of, because I'm completely unaware of how the U.S. Army infantry works and stuff. But in terms of getting more individualistic gear, like that's something I know British paratroopers were running around in like running shoes and stuff, and like you were talking about, people, you're bending the rules to get away with stuff to be useful,
Yeah, sure.
and to do your job because you're the person doing the job. But is that what's the culture look like for that in the US forces? Is that something that's kind of being like, are they warming to it at all and on a smaller unit level, or is that just still kind of like a no-no, like individual gear is like a rarity? I'm confused how that looks for guys who want to pick up better pouches without getting boned by command.
I mean, I think it's we see a pretty even split. The Army's very big, right? We have a lot of infantry battalions, a lot of hidden away infantry battalions all over the country, both in the Guard and active. And it's really dependent on the command team, and a lot of pressure flows down from the division. I mean, if the division commander, a general, says everyone will wear issued kit, all these commanders below him are going to say it's not worth my career. Yeah. So that a guy can wear his, his Haley strategic chest rig or whatever. So he, if the commander above doesn't give a lot of guidance, then we start seeing battalion commanders will start kind of letting things happen. And I think it's very much in the absence of direction. Guys will start filling the void with what they need. Yeah. It generally tends to be that if it's any kind of PPE, so your helmet, your plate carrier, that's off limits. You're wearing the Army issued piece. Pouches, chest rigs, all that kind of stuff. We'll see a lot of guys just buying their own stuff and using it, which I still think is just it's good. I think as a professional, you should buy your own stuff. If you're a professional soldier, which is another point to our culture thing we were kind of getting into, of how people see the military as a job and not a service. But if you're a professional, you buy your own stuff. You have to. That's just the way the Western militaries work, in my opinion. Yeah. You buy your own stuff, and it makes you more comfortable. It makes you more capable, and it's your job. Just much like a carpenter, when you start at a construction company, they might hand you a hammer and say, "Here's your loaner hammer until you can afford a hammer." But you don't go buy the shitty loaner hammer. You're like, I want the lighter hammer that doesn't fatigue me as quickly. So I think a lot of guys do that, and we see it a lot. But it sucks because you're always looking over your shoulder. Like, or is the commander going to just, because he can, like the next day, he can just be like, no more kit, personally owned kit, all issued kit. And then it's just over. You're just like,
$600 sitting in the corner doing nothing for you.
Just collecting dust, just over there. And you're literally doing the job that you should be wearing it for,
Yeah. And that term professional soldier, it's strange how, like what that means these days, because we have so many adults who are joining to be a professional soldier, then having an experience of being treated like an infant when they're meant to be like, professional warriors, right? Like, so they can't select how they're going to protect themselves and all the rest of it, carry their magazines. Yeah. It's, I really hope that's something that as younger officers are getting into a higher command, they might be a bit more aware of that kind of thing and allow a bit more individuality and professionalism.
Sure.
But I mean, is that something that you see in the as a potential?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
Not optimistic.
What's funny is we pride ourselves. America, we have an identity, and I think like people. I'm not going to say true Americans because I think there's a lot of different flavors. There's different time frames in which people have immigrated to the United States. But if you're talking about the OG flavor, like the 1776 flavor, there is this like defiance, or we like to think of ourselves as like a defiant people, being armed, all of those things. That's something that a lot of us hold very dear, and we see the writing on the wall. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like being in a dream where you're seeing something bad happen, but you can't, your voice doesn't work. That's how I feel a lot of days. But it's we have an identity that is very different from our military. Our military is actually very colonial. It's like very British. It's officer run. It's the officers and the enlisted men are separate classes. They're separate chow halls. The Navy probably has the most striking disparity between enlisted and officer ranks. I mean, officers have their own mess hall. Enlisted are not even allowed to go in there. It's like just this kind of weird split that I personally don't think makes sense in an army of free men, right? All volunteers. Yeah. It's like, hey, I'm a volunteer, dude. I may not have a college degree, but I'm a volunteer. So there's a little bit of respect that you should treat me with. Whereas like the British military, and this is where this role reversal that I think is funny, right? Is we see them as this red coat, like, kind of like oppressor military, but they're, working with them at like JRTC and in Afghanistan, their military has a lot more long-term, long service soldiers, and they treat each other with like a lot of respect. Like a private in the British Army, there's knuckleheads everywhere, but it's not the same. Like I would meet these privates and I'd be like, wow, you have like the temperament of like a sergeant in the US Army. And they'd be like, well, I've been in the Army for like 7 years. So I'm like, okay, makes sense. Like, cause he's a professional soldier. Like it takes longer to promote. The promotions are not as easy. It's, there's not as many people overall.
Generally, it's a lot more similar to kind of the U.S. Marine Corps too. They're working with a lot less. Generally.
Yeah, exactly. Like sure.
So they're already used to some hardship, and that's just kind of the culture. Whereas we've got this big disparity over here between in the U.S. between like guys who join up, just to get their college degree and fuck off, and they're not about that culture. And then there's guys who are there to, rah, blood makes the grass grow, all that good stuff. And very different kind of people, free men and people who are just there for a free ride.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the infantry tends to be shielded a little bit from, in the officer corps, right? It's shielded in the sense that it is still considered it's like the coveted part of the officer corps. So when you see there are like gates to get there, you can't be an officer and just be like, I want to be in the infantry. And they just go for it. It's like, you actually have to pass through some gates. You have to be selected for a branch to go there. You have to, I know in in, you know, 10th Mountain Division and pretty much Army wide, if you're going to be an infantry platoon leader, like you have to have a Ranger tab, right? It's like, it's just one of those things that, I mean, every once in a while there's not one with one, you know, because numbers, but generally speaking, they're like, hey, if you couldn't hack Ranger school, like you're going to go the staff officer route, and you're probably not going to get very high if you just need those things, right? It's like weeding people out in the process. Yeah, it's strange behaviors. And I think we're seeing a lot of the damage that a military that has been pretty much habitually deployed for over 20 years has had a budget that is just stupid, like this stupid budget, right? And then we have our culture in the United States is getting pretty crazy, and a lot of it is fueled by kind of the left-leaning educational institutions, and they have been infiltrated. We're probably on the same page there, but they've definitely. I mean, my stint in college, I saw it, and I went to college in South Dakota. You know, so, and I was just astounded at the level of like left-leaning propaganda that was being pumped into me, right? They were just like, it was just like all front, and it could be like math class, dude.
Yeah.
It was just find a way to slip something in there. And I'm like, it just wasn't for me, but it's affecting when those officers, when you're 18 years old and you go to college and you're injected with 4 years of liberalism, and then you're like, okay. And then you go and you're a platoon leader, and then you've been in, you know, pretty soon you're a general, and you're like making these really strange decisions, right? You're like, hey, I think that, you know, you should just be able to wear whatever uniform you want if that makes you happy. And it's like, hey, the Army is not here to make people happy. It's just like a little sticky note you should put up on your desk. Like, the Army is not here for happiness of anyone. It's not here for the happiness of soldiers. It's not here for the happiness of combatants or civilians or anyone. It's like, it's a tool. It's a lethal tool that, like, to project foreign policy around the world. That's what it's for. That's its only purpose. And we've like lost sight of that. It's like, no, it's like an institution where we can test like social, you know, kind of social endeavors.
In a controlled environment.
In a controlled environment against people who are rape victims. They can't say no. They can't say no. They're silent rape victims, both in the real sense, honestly, and in the metaphorical one.
Yeah. Nathan, you've had a shit-eating grin for like 5 minutes. What do you want to say?
The infiltration of cultural institutions is something like 2 words. Yuri Bezmenov. Infiltration of cultural institutions and specifically academia to create the. Yeah. Oh my God! I'm just going to rant again. We're not supposed to do that this episode.
No, I want to rant about it. It's a problem. It's a problem, man. It's and maybe if people hear it from multiple places, it's without even going into this like weird conspiracy, conspiracy theory stuff. It's just take a look around you. If your kid, I think kids are a good place to start. I don't know if you guys have kids or it's like kids are, if you're looking at schooling today and then you look at schooling, I graduated in 2005. So schooling was different than it is today. You go back even, to my dad graduating high school, schooling was very different. He went to school in Wyoming. They were still paddling kids. And you know what I mean? Like it was just like, we're not that far removed from like literal ass whooping.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying that physical altercations are the answer. I'm just saying my dad got paddled. So like, we're not that far off, but it's interesting to me to see what we value, what our children are taught or showed to value, which is, those are the people. And that's like the whole airsoft thing, right? Everybody loves making fun of airsoft, right? And years ago I was like, hey, you're making fun of the only kid who's interested in a career in the military. Yep. And you're alienating him instead of trying to like tell him like, hey man, keep doing what you do, but you should probably also focus on physical fitness and eating right and getting your affairs in order if you're going to join the military. Instead of mentoring them, we're like, that's dumb, you know?
Yeah.
And it's strange to see what we value. It's strange to see what kids are taught to value, and it's not winning. It's definitely not winning anymore. You're not supposed to win. You're not supposed to like winning. We also are feeding them lies about beauty, which is something that is strange to me. Pretty much everyone knows, like pretty much everyone can look at another human and go, hey, like you probably need to like diet a little bit, right?
Show yourself some love. Yeah.
And on the opposite,
back into the Seaburn fat shaming, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, fat shaming, whatever people want to call it. I mean, I would say that if your friend came in and was like super chiseled, jacked, you know, kind of had a little jaundice going on from the steroids they were taking, you would probably intervene.
Yeah,
you would probably be like, hey, man, like you've taken it a step too far. And as a friend, as somebody who cares about you, it's my duty to you, whether you like it or not, to say something. And so we, instead of telling people hard news, like, hey, dude, you've been coping with food and you need to stop. You need to stop doing that, and you need to start working out and taking better care of yourself, because that's the true route to happiness, is to do that. Instead, we're going, hey, let's just make all the mannequins fat.
Yeah. It's okay to not feel great every time you wake up and to be wheezing when you get to the top of, like, you know, two flights of stairs.
It's not okay.
That's normal.
And we know it's not okay. We know, and this is, you don't have to listen to me. Go on the CDC's website and look up the morbid obesity statistics for the United States know that it's killing us. Yeah, it's killing us wholesale. The leading cause
of death in America is heart disease.
Yeah, fat ass heart disease, dude. It's killing us, and I am just as guilty as any other American. We have access to just high calorie dense food, garbage food constantly, right? It was easy it's easy to fall out of shape. It's very easy. I mean, you take a month or two of eating bad and you're like, wow, I've gained 15 pounds or something. So it's not to say that shame is not the right word, but it's not enabling bad behavior either, right? You don't shame the loser in sports. Like that's what was always frustrating to me. You have bad parenting or whatever. You know, you win against somebody else. You treat them with dignity and respect, and that allows them to come back to the playing field and try harder next time. And they also respect you more. And then, hey, this old thing where people tend to treat people how they were treated, you know? So like when you lose next time, you're not getting, belittled by the opposite team or the opponent or whatever. So we're not teaching our kids these simple truths is what I call them, is that like, hey, there's winners and there's losers. And we've all been a loser. Yeah. That's the beauty of losing, is like everyone has done it. So it's a shared experience if we allow it to happen naturally. And this stuff is all leaching into our military. I have a lot of friends in the military still who are very, very much like, this is a career. The word career, I love that, career. It's like, it's not really a career, man. It's a service. You could stay in it for a long time, but you're there to serve, and you don't go home at 5 if they tell you don't go home at 5. You know, it's like, that's the mentality you have to be in the military, or you should have to have, but people don't have it anymore. They're like, oh, they kept us late and we need to file a complaint with the IG, right? And just get pissed off about every single little decision that's made, instead of, practicing how to be more lethal or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything's just so goddamn bureaucratic now. It's bureaucratic. A friend of mine is in basic. She's up at the base right now, and I spent last weekend with her. She's talking about, if we get counseled 3 times, we have to go to more counseling, and you get counseled 9 times over the course, you get recoursed, and it's like, they just made me do fucking push-ups.
Yeah. which is not allowed. That started leaching in. That mentality was when I had an interaction with my battalion commander, which is not something like a sergeant wants to ever do, right? But I had some guys who, E7 walked into our little hooch. No one even acknowledged he existed. So he was like, cool. I guess I'm just some asshole now, you know? And I was like, oh my God. So he's like, handle it. So I took these guys out back and I was giving them the business and making them do push-ups, and I was doing it with them. I'd always try to get involved, so I wasn't just standing there like, you know, I'm like, whatever, we're going to eat this punishment together. And battalion commander calls me over. He's walked by and he's like, hey, what are you doing? And I said, you know, I told him, and he's like, you can't do this. And I was like, oh, I can't? Because that's literally all I've been doing my whole career is doing push-ups for everything. Yeah. And he was like, no. And then I got the irony of this story. So I'm like, I stopped everything. I'm like, Roger that, sir. Gave him the old salute. Kids run back inside. I go back inside. The sergeant major comes in like 5 minutes later, kicks all of the Joes out, right? It's just E5s and above or whatever, NCOs. And then he makes us do push-ups. And he's literally telling us about how we can't make soldiers do push-ups. But he's so institutionalized, he didn't know how else to tell us besides making us do push-ups. So we were still just doing push-ups. And I was like, it was like Groundhog Day, dude. I'm like, what are you really yelling at me about making people do push-ups? And that's what you're making me do. This is the Army in 2007 or whatever. I just couldn't believe it, man. I couldn't believe that he was making us do that. But
I'm sure that's a better situation than it is now too, is a scary thing.
Yeah. I would take push-ups any day over fucking
paperwork.
Bureaucratic.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, you have to go sit and talk to someone.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
At least they make you stronger.
Yeah. We're gonna do a PowerPoint today, so just waste away in those chairs while I tell you not to rape people.
Exactly. Yeah. Sharp training for 20 hours this week. Yeah. Every week.
And tomorrow it's going to be mandatory diversity. It's
Yep. Well, I heard I have a buddy. I won't call him out, but he's in the Canadian Armed Forces and the infantry. Yes. And
I'm sorry, bud.
He's told me that that you can now use whichever gender you think you are or whatever we're doing now. You can wear the opposing uniform if you would like.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on which has more breathing. You know, if it's getting a little bit warm outside, maybe I'll slip on
You'll put on the skirt.
Yeah. You know.
You know
like the Scots.
The boys' bathroom is closed for cleaning. I identify as a girl for the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, you got to go in there. I mean, I'm not one to really care about all of this stuff going on.
Yeah.
With this, but it creates a clear and kind of insidious problem with soldiering. Yeah. It just really does. And anybody who doesn't, again, those pictures that were just posted of the Ukraine defenses with the trench lines that are now turning into absolute horrors because of the snow, right? Yeah. It's snowing and raining and all of that. That's not, I just don't understand how we can like see those images and go like, we need to really be concerned about this other problem. And it just shows you that we have a lot of, I'm going to use the word against our liberal friends. We have a lot of privilege to be able to make those the problems. What we don't see though, is that our military actually has this like massive other problem in the background of not being ready to fight and win a war.
Yeah.
That's really what the issue is. It's not about identity. It's about capability. Yeah. And it makes me kind of sad. And I think it was spiraling out of control when I was in the service. I don't think that my service time was the pinnacle of American service. I think that actually kind of the generation, before me, who still served in the GWAT, but were kind of, older guys that were, in their 30s and stuff like that, who had really joined in like the late 80s and the 90s. They just had that military experience that was still really focused on war fighting and was still kind of crude. And we really hadn't started to do the social experiment as much as we are now, which now it's real bad. People who are in are very sad. Yeah. And I wonder why everybody's committing suicide. Yeah. But it's no surprise to anyone who actually has been in the military.
Yeah.
It's no surprise.
I don't know a single person who's in right now who enjoys it or
exactly
or is
happy. I love my job.
Yeah. No, the only people that I ever knew that really liked it in the last, I want to say 5 to 10 years, where the people I define as sacks of shit, for lack of a better,
Yeah, they're just kind of surviving.
Skiing is better than ever, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. They're just kind of surviving. I don't know, man. It's strange. The social stuff, really, it's all I really think about anymore is just how to like shape culture in a positive way. Like how do you put out a message to young men? It really starts with young men. How do you put out a message that's positive, but how do you appeal to people that maybe aren't of the same opinion necessarily, or maybe they're not, maybe they don't believe in God, maybe they do believe in God, maybe you got to find some neutrality and commonality of, how to behave really, and how to preserve some masculinity. It needs work. All of it's always needed work. I don't think troop abuse is the right answer.
Yeah.
I've never thought that. There's a limit and there is a line for which of like, hey, you're stepping outside of corporal punishment and you're getting into abuse, right? Like you're doing something wrong now. There is a line. And I think these things are elastic and they've just kind of snapped back to, maybe the abuse got a little too much and then now it's kind of back in the reverse side. The pendulum is swung and we're not doing any kind of physical, stuff, which is, God, in America is desperately needed. Like soldiers need as many push-ups as they can get.
Yeah.
So it's a weird problem. I don't know what the fix is, but I think that's just talking about it,
Yeah.
No, for sure. That's I think that's a big focus of kind of our general message of the show is just, try and be a better you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Whether you're military or civilian rifleman or neither, there is a dire issue in the culture right now where people aren't looking after themselves, don't care to be better, just kind of take themselves at, this is me, whatever, I'm stuck like this.
That's the root of it right there.
So easy. So easy to be lazy. And I'm not saying this is a dig on anyone who is, or, but by their own volition or otherwise, because it's rewarded. The cheapest food is always the shittiest.
For sure.
It's always easier to sit down and watch Disney Plus or Netflix and,
It's true.
Worry about social issues that are fed to you from corporate media that don't actually matter than it is to actually give a shit about yourself or anything that does have any objective bearing. Because I do hate to say, there is kind of a crushing depression in holding objective truths and looking around you and saying, oh, everything's fucked. Everything is absolutely fucked.
Yeah, it's breaking down, man. We're seeing like it's almost like a space station that is in a decaying orbit, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's just too much weight to hold. But you're still on board and you're like, shit, and it's
no
like
kidding yourself.
Yeah, it's like it's here and we're riding it. And,
the Tower of Babylon is crumbling. It's
And I tell a lot of people when I meet them, like, the truth is in America, like Rome is burning.
Yeah.
And it's like, it is past time to pick a side.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, you have to figure out what your authority is. And something about our society is that, we have, there's like different layers of, I also say opinion, but basically there's like opinions, which is like something that you can just take it or leave it, right? You're just like, hey, this is my opinion on something. Oh, this protest happened. Well, I just have an opinion. And then somebody comes and they're like, no, it was actually about this. And you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that changed my opinion. It's like you didn't really care either way. And then we have on the other end of the spectrum, we have like belief, and conviction. And so it's like conviction being the last stop on the railroad. And conviction is something that you will take like an ass whooping for. It's something that you'll die for. It's like something that is so ingrained in you as a human that you're like, look, I don't care what you say. You will not usurp me from this. I will not budge. And then like beliefs are in between, and it's like you can believe something but through research or growth or whatever, it can change a little bit. We spend way too much time in opinions as a culture. We're arguing about stuff that is just like, it's just dumb. It's very shallow.
Vapid.
Yeah. It's just like, dude, let's not even talk about it. I've noticed, too, that we really are apprehensive about other people, right? And this is something that I have been guilty of, and I've been being much better at it in the last few years. But knowing your neighbor,
Absolutely.
like going out there and just like putting yourself in that uncomfortable situation where you're like, I'm going to go talk to my neighbor. And if he's like, hey, if he seems like he doesn't want it, I'm just going to be like, all right, man, I'm here if you need me. But, I'm going to go put myself in that situation and talk to another human that's real and in the flesh. And I can prove that he's not a skinwalker. Like, I'm going to talk to him. And then,
can you?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm going to talk to him, and then I'm going to get to know him so that I have common ground and I see him as a person and not, this. Everybody's been pissed off from like somebody comments on something and you're like, this guy, he said something and it just ruined my day or whatever. And it's dumb, like that guy wouldn't say that if he had to look you in the eyes and sit across from a table,
No, and a lot of people, I think we've been by design, I think, been made very tribal against each other. Like to the point you see your neighbor with the wrong, candidate sign in their front yard, and you're like, fuck that person forever.
Yeah, exactly. You're like,
I would never help them.
Yeah.
And whereas, you guys could agree on 90% of things, but you
press
probably
different
do. Buttons. Yeah.
You probably do. That's the beauty of, I think, the human condition is that there's outliers, but most of us just want, we want unity. Like we're naturally like clusters, we're clustered beings. We like having a tribe, and there are numbers. I mean, there's a lot of research on like how many people can one person actually care about. It's not a lot, but when you see somebody on the if you were to just come across a person like on the ground, and they look like they're having a rough time, you'd probably stop and be like, hey man, like, can I help you? Most
not
people
ask them what their label is.
Yeah, hey man, are you a Democrat? Nah, I can't help you. It's like you probably just help them, but it makes you wonder why are the politics so divisive? And Canada is strange to everybody in the United States. We're like, what is Canada? Like, why are there only like 30 million people? It's so gigantic. How come there's so many mosquitoes up north? How come it's just like a tundra up there? But we don't understand it. But I actually worked quite a bit in Canada, and I was trying to. No, I enjoyed everything but Toronto.
Oh yeah, fuck Toronto. Fuck.
Oh, it was so bad. Yeah, it was so bad. The RCMP, or who's the airport people?
Yeah,
it's all RCMP.
RCMP are kind of weird in which they fill a lot of roles where it's like the FBI had a regional police division. They were just sent to do random things. Here they're all our rural cops. They're not usually. I think it depends on the airport. I'd be surprised if they were working in the airport in Toronto, but
they were assholes. So whoever it was did not live up to like the Canadian trope.
They're RCMP. They come up a lot on this show.
I've listened to a few episodes and I'm like, here we go, RCMP again. I don't appreciate what's going on in Canada. I don't like it. I feel a little helpless. I mean, there's not much we can do, but you guys are actually at the point of no return, and you're actually past it.
Yeah. And
your population lacks that bedrock of identity that I was talking about at the beginning of I don't care really what's going on with firearms. Like, I'm going to hatchet you. Stop talking about it. It's it's something we're all kind of like, it's like there's so many people who are ashamed of that piece of our culture, but the ones who have read just literally one page from a history book know that it's the only way. Like, there's not another way. And so, like, the school shootings, the mass shootings, all the stuff, we can talk about if it's, if they're real, if they're not real. There's all sorts of, again, just taking the conspiracy stuff away.
Yeah.
There is no way for man to preserve his freedom over a long timeline without being armed. And we're seeing it, like, look at what's happening in China right now. Or in Iran.
Yeah.
It's not like or in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Myanmar. It's the whole world's on fire. People
Anywhere
trying
else.
to get some freedom.
Yeah.
And they can't, because look at Iran. They're like, hey, we're going to protest. And finally, Iran has had enough. Belt feds on the streets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like the security forces are like, look, if you're on the streets, we're going to shoot you with a 240 Bravo. Like,
Yep.
don't be on the streets. And you
No.
think what's going to happen in China is not going to be or as scary? It's going to be more scary.
Yeah.
You
We're
know?
all
Hey, nothing happened to Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to see that China, the one thing China has a surplus of is people.
Yeah.
It's always had a surplus of people. They don't care about, they've never cared. The Communist Party has never cared about people ever in any part of the world ever. But especially in China has been particularly heinous to its population, because when you're the president or whatever they call the guy in charge in China, I think it's the president.
Yeah.
But when you're that guy, people is not, you're not like, hey man, we need more of them.
Yeah.
You're like, you're like, if you want to protest, like we're just gonna make you disappear. And they have the security apparatus to do it, which is scary. So, arm all those people. You have 1 billion people with firearms of some sort. It's like the government has to make different decisions.
Absolutely.
They have to choose different ways, right? In Canada, what happened earlier this year, or I don't even know what year it is anymore. I'm just going to call it COVID half 4 times. Yeah, like what Trudeau was willing to do, what the government was willing to do, what the RCMP was willing to do, what happened with the whole freedom convoy stuff. And
that was heinous.
It's like the physical stuff, whatever, that's pretty typical for governments. But I think what snuck under the radar for a lot of people, and especially people in America, was like, we are now at the point of banking to where the banks are afraid of the government in a way that they will absolutely destroy you. The bank will, because the government's like, we'll destroy you if you don't destroy them. And then the bank's going like, crap, like, I don't know what to do. So they're like, well, F this guy in the convoy. That's one dude. Like, we're not going to lose the whole bank over it. Yeah. So don't give them a choice. That. Oh yeah. And once you think about like, you have your credit card and all of a sudden you have no liquidity. You have no money. Like you can't live anymore. You can't do anything.
Yeah. It's
you can't get a job. Weapon. Yeah. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Just let people know that if you push against the system in any way, we'll just cancel your credit. Yeah. We'll just cancel your government credits. We will not allow you to have a job. We'll not allow you to buy food. We'll not, like, the only way you'll have to live off charity. And nobody wants that, especially the people who are in that convoy. That's the last thing they want. They don't want to be a charity case. They're trying to be the exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Very terrifying, to be honest.
Yeah. And everything about it and how quickly they mobilized the popular opinion against the convoy protesters was insane.
Yeah.
If there was ever any doubt that basically every news media corporation in our country, and I imagine, I said this last time, most Western countries.
Yes.
I'm sure everyone's familiar to some degree, and if you're not, look this up. Operation Mockingbird. The CIA in the 70s, I believe, may have been the late 60s, put forward an effort to bring most major news corporations under government control. And this is all declassified. This is not conspiracy theory stuff. It's up there. I've talked about it before. The declassified documents end with, yes, it was a resounding success. We control everything now. And then that's it. And
it worked.
It would be insane to me if every single first world nation didn't have something similar.
It certainly can. I mean, it's strange. And when they start aligning, is when they give us divisive behavior. And then when they need us to crush somebody internationally or locally in the Canadian case, then all of a sudden they align. And it's like when I see like MSNBC and Fox News and they're like, doing the whole Schwarzenegger Predator meme with the two arms, interlocking arms, and it's like story is written all over the hands. I'm like, nope.
Yep, this is from the government. Someone wrote this in
Yeah,
Oh,
this isn't news. This is propaganda now.
Yeah,
And
they're asking me to hate somebody who's just trying to, just trying to make it in this COVID shit,
yeah.
yeah,
which
Like-
was an absolute. My wife is a medical laboratory scientist,
Mhm.
and before Spiritus, that's what she's college trained, like worked in a lab. Like this is literally her. Vaccines are like one of the things that she like specialized in, and she knows a ton about. And this was probably mentally one of the most crushing events that could ever happen because the government destroyed all trust in the institution, the medical institution, right?
Yeah.
They just shoved weird shit down our throats for too many months. And anyone who was kind of on the fence is like, not anymore, dude. I'm not getting vaccines. I'm not doing anything. I'm not even gonna wash my hands anymore. I'm just like, I'm over it. Like they're just done with it because the trust has been broken. That trust has taken, hundreds of years to build up, right? Because it's suspicious, like germ theory and developing that, and like,
and we have history with Tuskegee experiments
Yeah,
and stuff
for
like
sure.
that. Like
Oh my God.
the history is there. It's not like some wacky thing that's
no,
never
it's not.
happened
That's not a
before.
conspiracy, but it sucks because so much misinformation. And the right and the left were both. They went bonkers in both directions, right? They both took a football and just ran like in opposite directions, and we were like, I think everybody who's a little more like in the center and is more of a critical thinker was like, this is both sides are telling me stories right now, and I don't understand what's real. That's the problem. And then when the institutions that we're supposed to look towards, like the continuity institutions like the CDC, when they're telling you a story as well, that's when the trust is just gone. You're just like, I can't trust this information anymore. I need to be able to trust this, It's like, it's pretty shocking, man. The government, your guys' government is coming off the rails, dude.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Ours is batshit crazy, but yours is like, it's so dark and it's a mystery to me. It's scary, dude. Trudeau scares me. He is not that everybody makes fun of him. Like, oh, that guy is calculated.
Yeah.
He is calculated. He is evil.
The thing that gets me. It's all done so smart and well.
Yeah. He's
And
not
With a
dumb.
smile.
No, not at all.
Good old smile.
This episode was brought to you by AWS, Advanced Warfighting Solutions.
We use the out of their gear here at On War.
Everything's made in North Carolina, and they make everything.
Everything.
I'm a big fan of their SMU war belt, the snack pack, their assault pack, their plate carrier. Kind of a big fan of everything. And they've been around for a long time with a lot of hard use kit.
Overseas and here at home.
Sorry, I'm just reattaching my phone. Sorry, it'd come loose. This is my fidget spinner, okay?
I know. AWS is our longest running sponsor, and they've helped us do a little bit of everything here at On War, from keeping the guides coming out by providing Nathan a new iPad, as well as chucking gear our way so we can get out there on the range.
Tough as hell gear so they can help us go LARP in the woods.
Yep, my assault pack comes out with me every time I'm in the woods. If you want to pick up a one-and-done Molly pistol belt, look no further than the AWS SMU belt. Use code ONWAR10 for $10 off. We get no kickbacks, you just save money. Link to their site down in the description and in the Seaburn art page's bio. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the show.
The fact that these are being pushed so, for example, like the latest one, and God, I gotta escape like you did. Oh fuck.
I'll bleep it.
Yeah, bleep it. God, BR, I gotta escape like you did. Just
No, that's something you were touching on earlier, Adam, is like kind of the lack of culture in other countries to have that kind of where you're like, okay, if you push us much more, it's going to get very fucking serious because we are an armed populace that can say no.
Yeah.
Whereas
And we
England, yeah, absolutely. And in England, they're just like, and Canada, there just isn't that culture where there's
we don't have that
defiance.
I don't want to say
even
it
on a
doesn't
sensible level.
exist. It does exist, but it's very, very few people.
It's so underground. Yeah.
It's too
if
few.
you have like 2 or 3% of the population that's willing to say "fuck you," no, that is a significant amount of people. Here
Yeah.
it's less than that, and I
Yeah.
wish it was more. I genuinely do.
They just won't. And when you're that small, the problem with all of this too is like, I'll paint a picture for what's going to happen in the United States based on how we built this intelligence apparatus after 9/11. That is, it's insane, right? It is insane, the amount of money and infrastructure and employees. We stood up entire branches of the government to handle Homeland Security. We have the TSA. We have, counter-terrorism branches in everything, probably even the post office. We have all this stuff, right?
That's actually on record.
Yeah. It's insane. And this intelligence apparatus, again, it's fighting for its survival, right? It has to show like, hey, the Senate Committee on Intelligence, it has to show that there's worth there. Look at all these things we stopped. Well, when people from Syria, who were, mostly foreign fighters, honestly, but when they were forming ISIS and all of this, and we sent over every special operations unit in the United States, Canada, England, everywhere. And we were like, hey, instead of training in England, or why don't you just go train in Syria? And they went over there and they like smashed ISIS into oblivion. One of my buddies who's in 5th group, he said, to quote him, he said, ISIS are the hipsters of terrorism, and they never stood a chance. We just went and obliterated them. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a fight, but they got crushed, they got steamrolled. We kind of had this lull in terrorism, right? Like the strategy's not working on a strategic, like this big, like level that we wanted, like nation building and stuff, but it is working in a sense that like, you can only have the Delta Force show up so many times to kill your number one guy, like in the middle of the night, and just like hellfire missile him from the CIA every day all around the globe, to where like it really starts to deteriorate the command structure. So that apparatus more and more is starting to turn to its new favorite form of terrorism, which is not really terrorism, but it's this fictional thing, this like white supremacist, like they're like blowing this thing. Dude, I have not one time in my life living in America, 36 years, I have not run into an overtly racist, white supremacist, like swastika tattoos guy that wasn't an absolute mental case.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying racism isn't real. It's very real.
Yeah.
I have met people who are racist. There's a lot of them. But like this, to think that the United States government needs to point that same apparatus at its own people, which is what's happening. It's what it's doing. And when they put out that militant, violent, extremist like guide, like the FBI put out, and it had like the symbolism on there, and half of the symbols were just like
the Gadsden flag,
or Betsy Ross, or like just like things that are like very much attached to our identity as defiant people. That was it wasn't shocking, because nothing really shocks me anymore, but it was a little like unnerving, because I'm like, okay, these are not like just decisions somebody made in MS Paint on their computer. This was like, put these symbols so we can start normalizing that if you have a Betsy Ross flag, then you are a terrorist.
Yeah.
We can, and then so then the next phase of this, the first is that like identify who we want to be terrorists. The next phase is start isolating them. Right? It's the same thing we do overseas. It's like, who is a terrorist? That's one category. And then we go, okay, we know all the terrorists based off this. Now, one by one, we isolate them and we start killing them. And here it won't be killing. Here it'll just be imprisoning for life. But it's like, just start in one by one, your favorite identities in this industry space that talk a little bit too much about these things. They'll start picking them off. Yeah. They're going to pick them off one by one. And then, because when they're isolating one person, nobody really wants to step up. Yeah. Nobody wants to be the guy who stands up against tyranny and gets killed because we have too much to lose right now. Right. So they're going to erode us away one by one, and just kind of pick us off one by one. And as soon as this legislation passes, in Canada. I don't know if it already passed or what's going on.
It hasn't. It's still in pre-Senate.
Okay.
That being said, the left-leaning parties have a very large majority, and they all skew very anti-gun.
Yeah, so it's going to
That
happen.
being said, and I say this now on November the 28th, 2022, we don't know what's going to happen. People are having fairly good luck writing to... There are 3 large political parties that make up the left monolith here.
Sure.
And there's 1 conservative party. 2, if you count another one that didn't get any seats and split the vote. Not that I am in any way giving any tacit approval to any of these parties. I
Sure.
think they're
they're all discussing.
Yeah. And so the big thing with the semi-auto ban is semi-automatic Russian rifles are very, very, very popular with indigenous hunters. And the gun lobby, which, has a lot of hunters and a lot of indigenous people in it,
Sure.
are basically, and this is a very clever idea, spamming the NDP, this further left kind of formerly anti-establishment party, with messages saying, hey, this is going to fuck indigenous hunting forever.
Yeah.
And it is looking like they're starting to have a little bit of a schism on this, but maybe that's just copium. I don't trust the establishment as far as I can throw it, and they're all establishment. So
yeah, for sure. Control is really what they're looking for. I mean,
100%.
so when, mass shootings, I air quoted there, in the United States, I mean, they consider, I don't know the exact definition. I think it's 4 people.
3 or more people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, there's been some bad ones. There's been some not so bad ones.
Yeah.
Depending on the demographic of the person, projecting the violence, then that's how much media coverage it'll get. But like in Canada, because, we don't hear about everything that happens. You probably don't hear about every shooting of 3 people or more in the United States. So when was the last shooting in Canada that you can recollect that would be considered a mass shooting by those same standards?
It happens with not irregularity, usually in Toronto, usually gang related.
Okay.
The last 2 that I can think of that got any media attention were there was a mass stabbing on a native reserve, which I believe 12
Yeah, that sounds like a British crime.
Yep. 12 people were killed, I think, 10 or 12, and another 18 were injured. And then there was the famous Porter Peak shooting where over 20 people were killed from a man who had an illegal weapon that he did not purchase and was prohibited from owning, that came from another country, in which he simply walked door to door, kicked doors in, and killed families inside their houses.
Sure.
And this I point more as a failure towards the lack of guns than the guns themselves. He was in the province that I reside, which is where the shooting was. We don't like guns very much here. Really don't. And I think that, we don't have the culture for a concerned citizen to have stepped in or to have defended their house. And it's absolute...
Are you guys pretty rural too?
Where I am, no. It's a small city that is if I drive for 20 minutes in that way, it's rural. It's most of this place is undeveloped. A good 80 to 90% of my province is just woods. And
so it probably take cops a minute to respond, right?
It took 13 hours for them to get him.
Holy fucking hell.
Yeah.
There's a movie about that, dude.
Yeah.
It was the other one, the less popular 13 Hours movie. Didn't do as well in the theaters, yeah.
No, it took 13 hours. They shot at the wrong guy once.
No.
A woman cop was killed, and this is an absolute tragedy, but I will point at this as a failure of the establishment to train her properly. They got into a collision with their vehicles, and she Meg dumped her pistol at him, missed every shot from about less than 5 meters away, and she just got in a car accident. But it also came out that she wasn't exactly she failed her carbine marksmanship, and was shunted through anyways. She turned her back, ran, and was shot in the back, I believe. So
yeah, that is. I mean, and that's almost as much of a crime, to be honest, as to put people in those situations.
Absolutely, it's not
not
something that
prepared.
she would ever expect to be in, but it is the institution's job to prepare her for it.
Well, especially if you're going to be as an institution or as a government to be like, these are the only people who are trained to have this kind of, tool to save lives and stuff, and then you're not even going to prepare them for that single
Absolutely.
job and
Exactly.
disarm everyone else.
No,
Like,
instead you got to point them
Jesus.
at the truckers.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to
got to stomp a couple people with a horse.
Yeah.
outsource the responsibility to the other.
Yeah, it's pretty insane because here too. So I spend a lot of time around law enforcement.
Yeah.
Nature of Spiritus, and I honestly believe in my heart, because the level of law enforcement that I deal with is not always the beat cop, right? Like the guy, because he deals with really a lot of the same problems institutionally that, say, an infantryman would deal with. He's got a uniform. He's got like a 9 to 5. He's got to get certain things done, protect certain areas. He has his beat that he needs to be on. But that one tier higher, getting into the SWAT teams and things like that, those guys are not very keen on what's going on either.
Yeah.
Right. And which I appreciate every time one of those guys tells me, and they'll tell me things all the time without calling anybody specifically out, but they'll say things like, dude, you think I ever pull someone over? Like, they're like, that's not policing to me. That's bullshit. They're like, I don't care about that. Like, if somebody is doing something that is egregious, then yeah, I'm going to intervene. But like, if I pull you over because your taillight's out, it's because I want to tell you that your taillight's out. Like, it's not because I'm trying to do something. They're just different mindset people. And I'm definitely not here to like simp over law enforcement. I think that we get what we pay for when it comes to civil servants, both in the military and in law enforcement. And I think that I know a ton of extraordinary police officers who also take their oath very seriously. And in that oath does not say oppress, the population for the leisure of the government. It just doesn't say that. And another interesting thing we have is we have, there's different types of policing, but my favorite are sheriff's departments.
Yeah.
Right? So we have sheriff's departments, and those people are elected. Like the sheriff, not everywhere, but the sheriff is generally an elected official. He can go away, or he or she, I'll be very politically correct. They can go away. There we go. They can go away if you get enough horsepower behind not liking them anymore. Yeah. So they can go away, but their duty is to the people in their county. It's not to the mayor or the governor or the state, or it's literally to the people, which I enjoy, which is much better than most police chiefs. And their duty is to be a fucking politician, layer underneath another politician, and you just get these these power centers of assholes that gravitate towards each other. When it just, I don't know. It's the police can be very scary in certain places. Yeah, it's just the way it is.
I've thought for a little while, and this comes up fairly often, that when you see a cop, driving behind you, the feeling is usually one of anxiety or fear for
dread.
Yeah. And that is, again, it shouldn't be like that.
A protector or like a peace officer, as we sometimes call them. Like they shouldn't give you. You should be like, oh, there's a cop in the area. That's good. Yeah. Like in an ideal society, right?
Yeah,
sure.
Whatever we call that, protector. But yeah, in this country and most places, you're like, shit. Hope my day isn't fucked up.
What did I do wrong? Oh, am I going to have to pay my tithes to the crown?
Yeah. I mean, it's a dread, because at the very least you might be inconvenienced.
Yeah.
And at the worst, they're very and I say the whole violence is golden mentality is something that I live by. And I very much understand that if we use the analogy that the government is a castle, right? And there's a king in there, and there's all these people that defend the castle, and there's bureaucrats that make the castle work, and they're all trying to just make a living and survive. But one thing that everybody knows about castles is that if you attack the castle, expect it to push back. You know what I mean? The castle, that's what castles do. They push back. They're like, look, I'm trying to keep you out of here and you're attacking me. I'm going to dump hot oil on your ass. I'm going to start throwing stones at you and arrows and, you know, whatever I can to get you to stop. So you just don't attack the castle. And intelligent people deal with police interaction knowing that at the end of every police interaction could be death.
Yeah.
It could be. I'm not saying it should be or it will be or, you know, the vast majority. Actually, that's not, it's like the statistical probability of you having a deadly encounter, it's not there, you know. It's just you're going to have an encounter, but you're not going to get killed. The statistics just don't show that. That's just fact, right? But it's in the back of your mind that like you're dealing with the authority, like the tip of the spear of the authority arm of the government, that like that person has the authority to have special privilege to take away your civil liberties, at least for a while. Like they can detain you, they can transport you against your will, they can take blood from you without permission. They can do all these things to you. So you're thinking that when a cop gets behind you and you're driving and you're like, am I speeding? Is my taillight out? Did I do something wrong? Why are they behind me? Is this going to just, you know, like I said, at the least, just ruin my day?
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to go through some like bureaucratic, arbitrary bullshit. And states like North Carolina, if you get like a speeding ticket, it's literally like a racketeering scheme. You have to like pay a lawyer to represent you so you don't have to go to court, traffic court, and then like you have to pay all these fines, and then like they just let you go because they just want your money or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So like you go through it's like that's what's going to happen, so it makes you anxious. But really, at the end of the day, that cop can just be like, hey, get out of your car or whatever, and you're like, no, and then it's like that, like it can very quickly escalate into a very bad day for you. And that's to be fair to police officers, that escalation can happen either side of that discussion. Like a cop might just like, again, your taillight's out, and he's just like, hey man, I just wanted to tell you, and then you're like, fuck you, and he's like, are you okay? And then he looks back there and there's some weird, you know, now he can't let you go. That's the thing that people don't give like credit to police officers, is like they can't just walk past the problem, you know? So like if they see two people fighting, they can't just be like, you know what, this one's not for me, and I'm just going to walk away. Because then when that guy kills the other guy and somebody said they saw Officer Johnson just walk by, now he's liable for what just happened, depending on the municipality. And of course there's always exceptions, but like that's what he's thinking about, you know? So it's like this, it really is police. I think it's like the worst job you could have right now, to be honest. Like it is a shitty job. Like everyone hates you. No one wants to be around you. I think the best cops out there are working very hard to like not have that image, right? Like they're trying to like interact with the public in a positive way, so that you have a good interaction. Because that, I mean, I don't know if you guys have, but I've been pulled over where the cop was like, hey man, you didn't do something, like don't do it again, you know? Like I'm just, it's not a big deal, just like don't do it again. And I'm like, oh, very polite, very peaceful, like help me out with something. Guy pulled me over for a brake light, not like it was like 2 years ago, but he was like, hey, your brake light's out, it's dark, like you're like, both of my brake lights were out. Like yeah, like I had like a fuse blow, and he was like, just, you know, not a big deal. He's like, I'll just follow you to your house, and then like literally you can just park your car. And so that's what he did. He followed me, and then I pulled into my driveway and he just kept going. Yeah. Like, you know, that was like a good experience. And honestly, like in my mind, I was like, oh, okay. Like that's why all the ACAB and like the absolutes, when people are very like absolute about everything, frustrates me, because it doesn't do justice to the guy who's trying to do good. And it honestly, again, it alienates him. Yeah. You know, he's like, oh, ACAB, huh? Like, I know how this interaction is going to go. Yeah. Like he knows right off the bat, you know?
The us versus them mentality is one of the worst things, I think.
Well, like as we were talking about earlier, with kind of the empire coming home and kind of the growing, you know, the war on terror is just happening on you, or they're trying to make it happen on U.S. soil now. It has created more of an atmosphere for that, where it's not just going to be your ACAB types, but now you've got guys who are like, yeah, I've got an illegal SBR and I live out in the middle of nowhere, and it's never I'm not hurting anyone, I'm just doing my thing. But one bad interaction, that guy is doing 10 years in jail. His life is just
it's over. Yeah, it's over.
And now
absolutely over.
And now that we're getting into a point where there's going to be probably more incentive to seek out people, breaking those kind of firearm laws that we hadn't really, weren't really a hot topic issue before. Now that's going to be like, this is, the issue of our time. These white supremacists everywhere with their SBRs and legal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now that's being hyped up.
But it works. It works on your average city dweller.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
what do they fear the most? I mean...
Yeah, it's getting to a point where I'm not sure. I hope I'm wrong on this, but I'm a bit more pessimistic on the topic of law enforcement and stuff personally. But I do worry that we're going to get to a point where there is no longer a place for a peace officer.
Yeah,
like the mentality will just be gone. It's going to be, I am on an operation in my city streets. That kind of. I'm strapping on my body armor every day, and I'm on patrol. Deployed. Yeah. So.
Well, and it will become that. And here's something that is interesting, or like at least to ponder. But we have two options with what's going on, in my opinion. We have, well, maybe there's like a kind of a third too, but the first option is that all of the, for the lack of a better word, and not to offend people in the future when they come back to this podcast and cancel me for it, but we'll just say like all of the woke agenda stuff, right? The policy making, the everything going on culturally, nobody wins, everybody be fat. We get to this point where we think the bubble is going to burst, but it actually elevates society to this like another level of intelligence, big brains, everybody's walking around really smart, and war is over and famine is over and everyone has 37 COVID boosters and everyone is happy, right? And we're just happy. Like that's one reality that it either goes that way or it collapses under its own weight because it's bullshit, right? I mean, normally when somebody tells you things that are too good to be true, they are, right? And so utopia, once again, was not realized by an advanced Western civilization, and it collapsed under its own weight because the people that are doing are being outpaced by the people who are not doing. And so they just don't want to bear the burden anymore, and the gates come crashing down. That's another eventuality. And in that eventuality, as it's collapsing, because it's not just going to happen in one night, as it's collapsing, the police are going to be asked to deal with an extraordinary problem of, one, if we have this tyrannical government imposing craziness on people, sure, there will be law enforcement who are doing that, but there will also be the law enforcement who are forced into those city streets that are now becoming lawless because of the lack of services and the lack of everything, right? And there's not enough police, and then police start quitting because they're like, who wants to deal with that shit? And then pretty soon they become their own militarized kind of unit just for survival. And when you're out there and you're afraid of death, we saw it all over in Iraq and Afghanistan. When a young, morally sound American gets put in that situation where it's their survival every day, they sometimes, not always, make immoral decisions. Because they're like, look, it's me or you. I'm not taking the chance. Same thing's going to happen with that. And then there's kind of this third option where, which is the most scary to me, to be honest. I'd rather just like live in the big brain utopia where I'm canceled, but there's no jail anymore because it's utopia. So I'm just kind of like, they just leave me alone in my cottage. And then I'd rather deal with that, or I'd rather deal with like just completely rip the Band-Aid off and we just figure out where the cards fall, start over new. Hopefully with enough time to like, again, live in my cottage, live out my days. And there's this one that's more scary in the middle where, it's like probably more probable to where we fracture and there's these kind of schisms geographically. And so we're just in kind of this perpetual state of war, like, like low intensity conflict type stuff. Which, I don't know. Who knows? Pick your.
Balkanization could be the best thing or the worst thing to happen to this country. It could go either way, and I'm sure it would not be clean.
It
No,
would never
no.
be as good as it is now. Like, and that's the thing is once Humpty Dumpty falls off the wall, you're not putting them back together the same way. And that's what people are like, oh, I wish California would just leave. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's never going to be the same. Now we have like all of our ports coming in that side of the country, or just now we have no access. Like it doesn't work like it works right now. We have access to 2 oceans. We're geographically locked by Canada, which up until very recently has been a pretty good neighbor and not very threatening. And then, like Mexico's kind of had some issues, but we're dealing with it as a group. But it's like, I don't know, man. Once we start losing states, stuff's going to get weird. It's going to get weird if that ever happened. Not for Canada. I mean, Canada's already weird.
Yeah.
No help in Canada, but
there's no help in Canada.
Nova Scotia is the best. Sorry, Nova Scotia. Absolutely, yeah. Nova Scotia is the best.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Politically, it's not the best, but it's beautiful.
Well, yeah, but it has a lot of natural barrier to the rest of yeah.
And so a lot of peninsula province, and we have a lot of natural resources.
Yeah. Are you saying we? Is that where you live?
Yes, actually. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I was up at Peggy's Cove, dude.
Oh, dude,
I was out there.
That's a 40-minute drive for me. I was there
last
week.
Yeah, dude. Peggy's Cove's my jam, dude. I go, there's like that. You can eat there. I eat like lunch there. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. Let me know next time you're in town.
Yeah, I'm never coming back, dude. I'm getting a black bag the minute that I land. They're gonna be like, black bag. Trudeau's going to have me personally brought to his office. He's going to administer a booster shot, dude, like to me. If you want to stay, Adam, you just got to let me give you this booster.
You got to get your 4 boosters and eat your bugs.
He's going to be dressed like Aladdin with his which honestly would be worth it to me.
You really got to wonder which kind of blackface he's going to do that day. Like, is he? What is he feeling?
It has to be. I called Trudeau out on his bullshit many years ago with that photo, and it caught me an Instagram ban. Back in the day when Instagram bans were not as common. Yeah. It was like when stories really first started kind of taking off, and all of a sudden it was like, you're not allowed to do stories. And I was like, holy crap.
It's like you made fun of a politician online.
And it wasn't even making fun of him. I just posted and I said, yo, this is Trudeau, dude.
Yeah. There's a picture he posed for.
Like, he's like, I just like how he's like choking that chick too. He's like, come here.
Oh, dude, he does it so much. There's like 3 times, and he loves it. He loves it. It's like I just imagine on Halloween there were just like a team of aides and RCMP trying to keep him away from a jar of shoe polish.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna do it, dude. I'm gonna do it. You think it's okay now?
Sir,
didn't he apologize though? Didn't he apologize?
He did, and then they asked him, "Did you do it again?" And the press secretary is like, "We're not at liberty to discuss this." We have
security.
No comment.
Yeah, so stupid.
Yeah, it's So he clearly has done it a bunch of times, which means he, like, once, sure, twice, okay, 3 times plus. Like, you enjoy this a lot.
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's really weird.
But like the rules for thee and not for me. Or
Tails all this time.
Yeah,
Blue Bloods and us.
Yeah. It's weird, like, man. It's
the
weird.
monolithic cancel machine only works for the little people.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Another thing that I found interesting. I was working with, the Canadian Armed Forces for a few years, and every time I would go.
What were you doing up here?
What's that?
Is that what you were doing up here, Nova Scotia?
Yeah. Yep. Actually, I was working with the RCMP at that.
Interesting.
I'm sorry, dude.
I'm
sorry, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you would definitely not be working with any military that's stationed in Nova Scotia.
No, it was RCMP in Nova Scotia. I was in Ontario, Toronto. Disgusting. Where else did I go for them? I don't remember.
Did you go to an outdoor range while you were here, by any chance?
No, I never went to an outdoor range. Nope. I was in buildings the whole time talking about radio stuff, unfortunately. But
cool. So the RCMP isn't running around with Spiritus stuff.
Yeah, they are. So when you guys get picked off, or when you get picked off one by one, Nathan, sorry, dude, it's
okay.
They're gonna be kid out some Gucci
still
stuff.
here to get killed by the RCMP. I deserve whatever's coming.
Well, I hope they, I hope they don't. The guys I met were, again, it was working. I think they're a unit. They're like the ERT guys, like the response guys. So again, I don't know their political leanings. I asked every single one of them why Canada is so dumb though. And they were like, I was like, hey, how come I can't own? They're like, well, you can own a suppressor. I'm like, cool.
No, you can't.
Yeah, that's what they said. You can own one. They were, no, you can own a suppressor.
No,
Easier than,
no, they're lying to you. You keep suppressors are blanket banned here.
Are they now?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Like years before they would have told you in like the 90s. National Firearms Act. They banned suppressors.
No, they lied then, dude.
They're like, we can own suppressors.
Oh, that's what they meant. They meant they get to own suppressors.
Yeah, rules for thee, not for me. No, I mean it's a fair enough because like the Commonwealth's pretty reasonable about suppressors.
Yeah, but
England
Canada.
is great about suppressors of all things, but we're polite, I guess.
All
but...
suppressors are banned here.
Okay, never mind. Well, they lied.
Damn.
Yeah,
that guy just didn't know. But that's the thing is he didn't really know a lot about firearms. And I was like, hey man, like what's up with Canada? But he kind of had this like unhealthy fear of guns. He was like, oh, they're so dangerous. And I'm like, well, I mean they are if you like put it in your mouth. Like if you treat it like a tool that can hurt you and just respect it,
like a power drill or a saw
or anything. Yeah. Just don't put it in your mouth, Yeah, it was interesting, but what I want to get at is the military. I would always ask those guys if they would answer the call if the Queen called. That was my favorite question.
Yeah, don't make me throw up.
Like the Queen of England. Like if the Queen of England was like, yo, Royal Canadian Regiment, whatever, in Saskatchewan, I'm fighting some shit over here. I need some help. Would they mobilize? And like surprisingly, there was only ever one interaction where a guy said no.
Really?
Yep. Every other time the guys were like, they would like look around and they'd be like, fuck yeah, I'd go.
The Queen Mother?
Okay. Yeah, they were like, dude, I will go. Like they're like, because I kept seeing the Queen everywhere. It was like the Queens or and like I was like, what's up, guys? And they're like, yeah, dude, we swear an oath.
Oh, and that's like, so lame. I don't know anyone.
We got down for Lizzie.
Yeah.
Which I found very interesting, dude. I found very interesting.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
I mean, I would go fight for the Queen before I'd fight for Trudeau, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's not
anymore,
a tall order. Yeah.
I'd definitely fight for zombie Lizzie over Trudeau.
Yeah.
That could get interesting.
Yeah, dude.
Like, I would fight and die for like Eggs Benedict at fucking Smitty's before I fight and die for Trudeau. Like,
oh, dude, Trudeau, man. So like, okay, so for all of us ignorant ass Americans, like, how long are we gonna have to deal with this guy?
2025, and I think things are going to get a lot worse. If I'm still living in 2020, like there's two eventualities: I'm in the ground, or I'm living in America or somewhere else in 2025. But there is a non-zero chance that your friend who's afraid of guns will just shoot me in the head one day.
No, he's got a drone these days, mate.
Yeah. He's just going to bomb you with a drone.
Yeah, he's going to freeze my bank accounts, and then they're going to put me in prison forever for...
Actually, they're not even going to put you in prison. They're just going to not let you eat.
Yeah, no, they're
no more credits for you.
I'm going to join one of the city's growing homeless population camps. And like, we've got massive tents.
Hobo with a shotgun.
I can't believe you're in Nova Scotia.
Dude, yeah.
Out of all the places you could be.
It sucks here. It's beautiful.
No, it does not suck. It's the best.
No, it sucks to live here. It's great to visit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Like, trust me, like our politics, you can't even shoot in the woods here at all. At fucking all.
Really? I figured they would have been like peninsula people, dude. Like what happens on the peninsula stays on the peninsula.
Oh yeah, you can in terms of like if you go into buttfuck nowhere. Yeah, it's like if you're but I've got stories I'll tell you off there. I've got one story I'll tell you off there because I don't want to out myself here.
Yeah, don't do that, dude. Don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I enjoyed it.
There have to be plenty.
Yeah.
I know. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Nova Scotia. I like that the plants were red.
If you are ever back here for whatever reason, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. Don't.
Stay away.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to come back now. I gotta look it up, though. Just to visit.
Yeah. No, I drove to Maine the other weekend just because, like, it's pretty close to the American border.
Well, so, you got this island up here, dude.
Cape Breton?
No. Is that an island? Oh, it is an island.
Yeah.
No, further, dude. Newfoundland.
Yeah.
You should you should just go up there, man. They're probably
I'm leaving. Like, fuck this entire country.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, no.
You going to Texas?
I was thinking like Wyoming, Alabama, North Carolina, a couple places.
Yeah, don't go to Alabama. I'll tell you what, Wyoming is beautiful. It's getting taken over. I'm looking at a map right now.
Yeah.
So have you lived in Nova Scotia like all your days?
I've traveled a lot, like a lot. I spent like a year in the Middle East, spent a year in England, did a lot of traveling growing up.
Yeah, so you have a sampling.
Yeah, I got a sampling of everywhere. Like, lived in Toronto for a bit. I know what kind of places I hate and what kind of places I don't. So far, my favorite place that I've spent any extended amount of time in has been Idaho.
Yeah, well, Idaho's beautiful, so.
Yeah, Idaho's great. That's high on my list of, like, potential places.
Yeah.
Actually, Adam, you had a visit to Idaho recently, didn't you?
I did, yeah. We went up and saw old Mike, the Grand Thumb crew
That's
up
awesome.
there. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I'll tell you geographically, as somebody who has really lived in America his whole life, you really want to avoid Washington, Oregon, California.
Oh, yeah.
Avoid them at all costs.
New York.
Idaho is next.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, anything that is attached to any of those states that I just listed is next. So, like,
the
tide is
going. It just spreads.
Arizona, New Mexico will probably fall.
B.R, are we allowed to talk about where you are?
Oh yeah, Arizona. Yeah. I moved here because it's the opposite of England, and they're turning it into England with sunshine. It's fucking awful.
They are. Yeah, they are. And that's we have Colorado is actually where I'm from, but Colorado has capitulated. So they bent the knee.
Yeah.
Wyoming is on its way, but is.
I love Wyoming too. That's what I've been eyeing up.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'll tell you what a sleeper state is. South Dakota.
Really?
That is a sleeper state. Yeah, but it is going to get taken over because that's just how these things work.
That's just how. The
really, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
There's nowhere. I mean, there's nowhere
Apart
to go
from
permanently.
the cottage.
Yeah, the cottage. Yeah, and that's actually that's in Saskatchewan because nobody goes there. Northern Saskatchewan, dude. You just go with the mosquitoes.
You've got sight lines for like 10 kilometers in every direction.
Yeah.
You yourself an anti-material rifle and a good freezer and you're laughing.
It's what they tell you in Saskatchewan. Your dog can never run away.
Yeah.
It's always within eyesight.
Yeah. Oh fuck.
Yeah, don't do Alabama though, man. You're not gonna have a good time there. North Carolina is pretty decent right now. Wyoming
as an Asian dude that talks kind of pretentiously, I think that maybe Alabama's not a good idea.
No, Alabama's not. And plus, they got. I'm not gonna lie, they're kind of. I think they have the lowest education rate in the country right now.
Yeah.
So you just kind of want to go somewhere. Eventually, you're gonna want to talk to someone.
Yeah. Oh, community is actually something that I'm prioritizing. I don't want to go somewhere where I don't know anyone. I have enough friends kind of scattered about that I know obviously I can't just move somewhere and drop in and immediately, but people who are like-minded and that is very important to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't want to leave one dystopian hellscape for another. You got to choose wisely. I've never really thought about it. It's interesting to think that people again, like looking at the United States. I mean, there's a lot of states.
Yeah,
and you got to make decisions.
Yeah,
there's so much to choose from, and it's not like that here. I mean, here we have similar, Alberta is a red state, Saskatchewan, all of that, but they're a lot more constrained by the power of the federal government.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, provinces here, and thankfully that's looking like it's starting to change with the new federal firearms regulations. They're not quite as good at telling the federal government to just fuck right off.
Yeah, which is what they should be doing. But
yeah, and it seems like that's what they're doing with the semi-auto ban. Alberta just said that they refuse to enforce it in any way, shape, or form. But they're saying something and there's action. We'll see.
They'll get pressured. And Edmonton, I mean, Edmonton is. I've been to Edmonton, so that's that's like the RCMP hub, dude.
Yeah,
You don't want to be hanging out there.
I don't want to be hanging out there. That's
like,
no. I'm going to get fucking drone striked there.
Yeah, when inevitably all of our favorite things in life get banned, I want to be somewhere where the only law enforcement is a guy who sits in his patrol car and watches people coming in and out of town.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like,
yeah,
like waves at you.
Like Tennessee seems pretty cool.
Tennessee's cool, man. It's you know, the truth of the matter is that population density directly correlates to liberalism. So like, when you look at the cities, they just start overpowering the rest of the terrain, and you just can't fight against.
The more people you get together, the dumber they get as a collective.
And it's just an echo chamber of stuff, you know. But states that don't get talked about, it really depends on how much the outdoor activity appeals to you and like the natural beauty.
Much.
Okay, so
there's a reason I'm back in Nova Scotia, and it's not the fucking laws.
Yeah, sure, exactly. So it's like if you're into hiking and climbing and being outside, then you're definitely going to probably want to be on the prefer the western side of the country for sure.
Yeah, that's why I ended up out here.
But there are places, if you're like, I want land and I want to build a compound and be out there doing my own thing, and like there's places like Nebraska that people overlook, right? There's beautiful places in Nebraska, you know. It's not all just cornfields or whatever. So I don't know. Do your research, man, but stay off the coast, either side. Georgia is pretty good still. South Carolina is, I mean, it's like they're the become ungovernable people, so it's still pretty good there. The terrain is kind of shitty there. North Carolina is still good. Virginia, not so much. West Virginia is pretty decent. I mean, I don't know. Arizona is probably still okay in the rural parts, but it's going to get taken over.
We're going to run out of water.
Yeah, it's going to be out of water.
Like legitimately, we're having serious water issues.
Yeah, it's not good. You better start getting rain barrels, dude.
Yeah,
I think I'm going to head a bit more north.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just like natural resources and everything else are a factor as well, to the point where there's so many things to take into account when we're weird, schizophrenic people like us.
Well, we have the beauty of the internet on our side. We don't have to ride a wagon across the country until like half of us are dead, and we're like, this will fucking do, whatever.
Yeah, let's put it here. There's water here.
Yeah.
Come to North Carolina, man. We'll take you.
You know what? North Carolina's high on the list.
Asheville, dude. You get Scott. Yeah. I mean, don't live in Asheville, but it's there. You can go there and like, you know, mountain bike.
Get your fill of civilization.
Yeah.
Or Canadians probably do like unicycle stuff.
Yeah. Ultimately, there's a lot of factors, but it's people first. Like the human interactions and the people I know are going to dictate wherever I go.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and North Carolina, if for whatever reason, that doesn't look like it's become dog shit. So,
well, what is the process?
So there's 3 ways, and this is actually a Trump era law that kind of otherwise it would have happened by now.
Got you, dude.
Trump of all people.
I know.
Yep.
Big Daddy Trump, dude.
1, marriage. 2, large cash investment in a business. 3, through work, which generally has to be through either a STEM degree or 10 years of on-paper experience within a particular field. All of which are very hard. It is very fucking hard to move to the States as a Canadian.
Wow.
Wait, are the particular fields like all kind of like not your stuff, or could it be your kind of?
It's engineering. It's medicine. It's, you know, like
you can 3D print.
Yeah, I know how to 3D print. But
you're an engineer.
Yeah, that being said, like years of fabrication, I don't have 10 years of fabrication. I got like 6. And most of it's not on paper. It's like, oh yeah, I did contracting for movies and sorry, I'm talking about myself and my fucking issues. We'll figure it out as it stands. My fuck everything I have to go option is I sell my house and I invest $100K in a business in the States somewhere.
Damn.
Yeah, no.
I just don't want to
crazy, man.
Just trying to leave.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because our politicians stand up and proclaim to the world that we need these people. We need these people to immigrate. We need bright people to immigrate. And then it's like, hey, they're like, no, not you, man. Yeah, you're not the right. You're not. You're not going to vote for me.
Yeah,
you're not going to vote for me. So
exactly. No, it's funny here. They, my friend who I talked to, who's in a basic right now, she talked about her process coming over because she's a Syrian refugee. She came over from escaping ISIS, and
sure.
I'm not going to talk too much about her or her experiences, but she's cool as fuck. But she talked about immediately how she's on the ground, and she is set up with a meeting with a politician, one of the liberals, who, and when they meet, the liberal minister of, I'm not going to say because this is probably on the record somewhere, immediately goes, hey, well, do you thank, the people who brought you? Do you thank the communities of color that you came from? So, like, all these race-based questions,
Of course.
all these like, hey, nudge nudge, thank us for doing this. And it soured her to the entire process so much. And also the fact that they were not checking any of these people that they were bringing.
No, yeah.
There were, by her own admission, a lot of really not great people on
unsavory people
on that plane. Yeah,
it's a shame.
Yeah, but it's politics. It's all a political game. They want people to come and vote for them, and it's racist if you don't let them vote, or and they don't want the people who might not vote for them because
well, yeah, they're not gonna. I mean, they're not. We don't do anything as countries. We don't do anything that isn't benefiting some politician somewhere.
Yeah,
like that's just how they have to be, and by design. I mean, you have to get somebody emotionally invested in some way. That's why people lobby politicians. So you have, but we're not bringing people from, the interior of Africa. We're not, you don't hear like big news stories about us immigrating a bunch of people out of that hellhole. Like people are getting like abused and murdered and all sorts of scary shit over there. But we're not really doing a lot to, it's just because it's not the news story. So there's no political capital involved in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I was going to say you could go north, but you're kind of screwed by Alaska for my plan. But I was going to say you could go through, just go and join Wagner Group. You could just go over the Bering Sea and just like get,
just really get killed in some mud hut somewhere. Yeah. My drone will just drop
a sledgehammer to the head.
I just want to point out it's far AF to get from, one side of Russia to the other.
Yeah, but this is true.
Yeah,
ultimately, at the end of the day, and I imagine this applies to a lot of Canadians, not just me. I just want to be somewhere where my family doesn't have to fucking worry, where I can raise a family.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like I'm going to get shot in the head for wrong think one day.
No,
dude, exactly.
It's wild because when you live in a country like the ones we come from, you have to be like, all right, can I set down, actual roots here? Is this somewhere I could be for the rest of my life? And sadly, the place, if the place you're born is not conducive to your lifestyle and what you believe in,
you should go.
It'll never be home.
Yeah. That's true.
As Adam was talking about earlier, it's convictions. It's things you're willing to die for. And I'm willing to die for him, but I'm not willing to die for him here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No,
and I mean, that's a choice everybody has to make. And I mean, America, I'm still rooting for America right now. I'm still I think, we're starting to get into an economic downturn.
Yeah.
And I'm already starting to see like a little bit of hope where I think we kind of peaked. We kind of hit like the roller coaster peak of like the woke agenda stuff. And I think that people, who are a little more moderate are starting to just be like, man, I'm kind of just really tired of you telling me that I'm racist all the time or whatever, and then so it's starting to maybe come down a little bit. Maybe we exhausted some of that and, maybe we'll start getting back in touch with a little self-sufficiency and things like that,
I'm very optimistic for that. I think a lot of people have kind of seen, as you said, kind of the excess and kind of how, like you said earlier, privilege and stuff, how good we have it. And they're like, okay, this isn't really compatible with what a shitty economic situation we're in. We can't be as comfortable and as pampered as we like to be. We might actually have to take some responsibility back into our own hands.
Sure. Yeah. And just do the right thing,
Yeah.
So,
Like,
uh,
from the
minor white pill at the end.
Sorry.
Yeah,
It's a
minor white pill.
yeah. Just like a little right at the end there. Sneak it in.
From the outside looking in, I honestly, and maybe this is just me being overly optimistic, America is divided. It really is, but it seems like the last and best bastion in the developed world for any sort of like freedom of ideology.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think we could, again, why do I support? I mean, it's very blatant imperialism, but I've been very public about my support of such actions because I do believe in my heart that in order for a scientist to have the environment in which he can be nurtured, or they can be nurtured, and they can learn and continue to learn and not be afraid, right? Like it's a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like I don't want that scientist to dip below on his security concern, right? I want him to just stay up there and be like, I feel protected and safe, and I have food, and my family has food, and I have enough economic wealth and enough security to keep learning and keep pushing science and keep pushing initiatives that are going to be beneficial to all of humanity.
Yeah.
It's like America has been leading a lot of these initiatives for a long time, which we don't get a lot of credit for. I always point that out when everybody's like, oh, they're all fat. I'm like, yeah, we're also pulling like 100-hour work weeks and shit, dog. So like, it's not for nothing, but we've been trying real hard in the work side. And so like, I do believe that America, we could meddle a little less in world affairs. I would really appreciate us not invading every single country ever, but it would, I also don't think that we're going to be able to sit on the sidelines. Like a lot of people think we can just kind of collapse back in and kind of shut the doors. Like I think that ship has sailed, for the world, like this whole world economy. It's not like what everybody thought it was going to be, where, there was a lot of talk of like, oh, this one world and like the economy, and there's no longer going to be nation states. I think COVID kind of taught us that we're going to go back and forth essentially when it's convenient, and when it's not convenient, we're going to suck it back in. But I do think we're kind of the last hope, which may be a little hubristic and narrow. It may seem narrow-minded to every European who's going to be super mad that I just said that. But I think we're kind of the last hope for humanity in terms of advancing us into that next like stage of evolution where we're smarter and we can be better stewards of the planet, and all my environmental bullshit that I like talking about, not in the sense that I think we should all just capitulate to the Sea Shepherd or whatever in Greenpeace, but I think we should take care of the shit we have, and that includes the land as well.
Yeah.
But I think like science is going to be a big part of that.
Yeah.
And you can't have science if all the scientists are banging rocks together and killing each other for food, So
yeah.
America, fuck yeah.
America.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
There you go. We want to kind of
let's wrap it up
there.
Let's wrap it up. We're at 2 hours. If anybody makes it this long,
you'd be surprised. We do pretty good with 2-hour episodes.
I mean, I listen to it, so
that's our bread and butter is 2 hours.
Our best episodes seem to be around that.
Okay, good, yeah.
3 hours, we lose a few. Everyone wants to go off and fuck with their crayons or whatever. But
the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Dad advice.
Yes, I was waiting for someone to do it. Yep.
I gotta give dad advice.
You gotta give dad advice. We stole this shamelessly from Mike, and I don't give a shit.
I feel like my dad advice was sufficient on the ambush video.
If you haven't seen the ambush video, go watch it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, I give dad advice there. But I said there, I'll just say both. The one I gave there was, if you haven't seen it and you just want to get a freebie here, is that you should wake up every morning and recognize how deeply flawed you really are as a human. And it's not so you could feel bad. It should be that you should look in the mirror and you should see what you don't like, and then you should spend your time trying to change that. Right? Absolutely. If you live by that, if you literally like make a checklist of everything that you don't like about your situation or yourself. It can be self-improvement. It can be situational improvement. If you just prioritize it first thing in the morning and say, I'm flawed, but I can be better, you're going to go out with like a much more positive attitude, and you're going to get a lot more done. And if you keep reminding yourself, I think a lot of people cope and they just don't look at that in the mirror. They're just like, hey, I'm a little overweight. They just don't look at it. Hey, I'm not doing well at work. They don't look at it. You got to like confront it first and then work on it. So dad advice.
Yeah. No, self-awareness is
it's huge.
It's so important to being a mindful.
It's something a lot of people don't do.
Yeah, they don't. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
Yeah.
Really
we do a lot
is.
of kidding ourselves.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And we all have room for improvement. That's for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
BR, you're not exempt from this. Dad advice.
What?
Yeah, you're not exempt.
I'm a fucking host.
I don't care.
I'm the host.
Yeah,
Don't turn this shit on me.
I just
Dad
did.
advice.
Yeah, do it.
God,
You're on the spot
motherfucker.
You
now.
don't have to be a dad though.
No,
No.
Nathan. I got a few more years. Like
Yeah.
that's coming, but we got some time.
You got
But
some
all
time.
right, some dad. For the Europeans, the Euro trash, the Canadians, everyone trapped all over in the.
In the not free
Since we're
states.
Yeah. Since we're talking about that kind of stuff, no, prioritize kind of what you want out of life, and don't waste time in places that make you unhappy or that don't treat you with the respect you deserve as a human being with individual thoughts, needs, and all the rest of it. Find somewhere that you can actually call home, not just a lot of people be upset with that, like this is my nation, this is where I'm from, but you don't necessarily owe it loyalty if it doesn't treat you with basic fucking respect.
True.
So whether that's a state, a country, whatever it might be, go somewhere that wants you and that is going to be a decent spot to live out your life.
Yes.
Agreed.
Spoken from the former Brit himself.
Yep, with my corrupted as hell accent.
Yep. Anyways, Adam, this has been a good one. A really good one. And there's a lot more I want to cover. We should do this again at some point.
Absolutely. Just let me know when.
I have enjoyed this immensely.
Yeah, this was good.
Quick dad advice for anyone listening. Don't comply with gun control. If you do, you're a pussy.
It's true. It's true.
He speaks the true.
Okay, bye.